Welcome to Future-Proof Business. Smart strategies, real insights, and tools to lead and scale in a fast-changing world. Let's future-proof your success.
My name is Daniel Stein, host of Future-Proof Business Podcast. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Alan Lazaros. Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Daniel, thank you for having me. I want to start with gratitude always, because in the beginning, when I started this new endeavor 10 years ago, it was Alan Lazaros, LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know, and it was absolute crickets. So now whenever I get interviewed, I always remember what it was like in the beginning, and I'm very grateful. So it's no longer crickets, which is good, and we're going to talk about that. So thank you for having me.
Definitely. I was doing a little research about you before the show, and I saw that you have a very impressive background. Like, you have a degree in computer engineering and an MBA, and you mentioned to me that you went to Worcester, which is a really great school to go to. So congratulations on that. I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind asking some personal questions, like when I was doing research about you and mentioned that you were in a car accident at age 26, like, how did that particular moment really impact your life to how it is today?
Yeah, thank you for being so respectful about the personal stuff. I appreciate it. So ultimately, my story in a nutshell, I'm 36 years old, and you can't condense 36 years into 3 minutes, but I'll give you the shortest possible version. There's that quote, some people have a job, some people have a career, some people have a calling, and I didn't find my calling until 26, essentially. So tough start. Birth father passed away in 1991 when I was 2, almost 3. I had a mom who was 31 at the time. I'm an engineer, so everything's numbers. Sister was 6. I had a stepfather named Steve Lazarus from age 3 to 14. So my birth father was John McCorkle. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. 6 kids, big Irish Catholic family from Massachusetts, born and raised. And I was born and raised in Massachusetts as well. And my dad died suddenly in a car. And my stepfather came into my life around age 3. And so from 1992 to basically the early 2000s, my stepdad was around. I took his last name, I want to say around age 7-ish. I'm not 100% sure about that. Obviously, I was a kid. And my mom and stepdad did not get along. That's a polite way to put it. Hardest year of my life was when I was 14. And again, I did not know this at the time. And this circles to the car accident at 26. But ultimately, I've done a lot of therapy in my 30s. I've reflected back, rewatched the movie of your own life, and it all starts to make sense. So at the time, I didn't understand this, but now I do. My stepfather left my family at 14. He took his entire extended family with him. To this day, I've never seen or spoken to a single person since. I've talked to him a little bit on Facebook Messenger, but I've never seen him in person. That same year, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and we get kind of ostracized from her side of the family. So by the time I'm 14, and we don't associate with McCorkles anymore, my birth father. So I kind of lost 3 families by the time I was 14. Lots and lots of adversity challenges. My sister moved out that same year when I was 14 as well. So I had 2 trauma responses to that. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are the 4 trauma responses. I socially was fawn, which is appease. It's you become this sort of chameleon, fit in, don't lose any more people. But behind the scenes, when no one was watching, it was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. It was fight. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. So this is sort of where the achiever was born, so to speak. And I have all these awards behind me if you're on YouTube. And really what it came down to is prove myself. And I didn't know that at the time. Obviously, I'm just a kid. Straight A's through all of high school. I got the President's Award signed by George W. Bush. And when my stepdad left, he took 90% of the income with him. So I went from sort of boats and ski trips, .com bubble type of stuff. He worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers during the .com bubble, so we did very well. And we went from boats and ski trips. We had a yacht, an apartment building, snowmobiles, BMW, all this stuff, to now I get free lunch at school because my income is so low. We don't have cable. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. I'm shopping at Salvation Army. And again, we're not going to starve by any means, but it was definitely different. And I went from, I hope I get into college at WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, to even if I do get in, I can't go because we can't afford it. So I bootstrapped my way through high school. I get straight A's. I got all the scholarships and financial aid I can possibly get my hands on because it was $50,000 a year back then. And I got to go, I got in, I got to go, got my computer engineering degree, master's in business, and then I was off to the races. So I was used to being broke in high school and college. And then this is 2012 bachelor's, 2013 master's, and the economy's coming back after '08, and I just crushed it. Tech company after tech company. I bought Sensata Technologies, Lens Americas, a little company called Oz Development. I eventually landed a company called Cognex. I go from 65 a year, up 65 to 85, 85, 105, 105 to 125, 125 to 185,000 a year. So I'm a global 1% earner in my early 20s, and I was broke in high school and college, so I didn't have high expenses, no mortgage, no kids, that kind of thing. Paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year, 150 grand in a Vanguard account, and I'm off to the races. And then I get in my car accident. So at this time, I'm 26. This is in 2015, dark winter night, my fault. Head-on collision. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck, and thank you, Volkswagen. Saved my life. The safest car ever. I used to call it the tank. It was a 2004 Volkswagen Passat. I bought it for $5,000 cash because I wanted to save money. I didn't want a depreciating asset. I had all my money in Vanguard. And it saved my life. So when I was 26, fortunately, no one was killed. Car accident was my fault. This is not a fender bender. This is a head-on collision at 30 miles an hour. So this is not good. And fortunately, no one was permanently injured. No one was killed because it would have been my fault if that was the case. But I was completely shattered because my birth father died in a car when he was 28. And this was the second chance my dad never got. And so that was my calling. And I found personal development, personal growth, self-improvement, fitness, health, wealth, life, and love. And I basically found my calling, which is reaching my full potential and helping others do the same. And that was 10 years ago. I started that company I told you about, Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know. And good luck getting into high schools and colleges with that tagline, by the way. But anyways, so now we have an 18-person team and 2,200 episodes almost. And we work with 113 podcasters and business owners all over the world. I have 24 clients. I'm a business coach, and it's really snowballed into a lot, which is great. And I'm very grateful for that. But I'll never forget just the unreasonable amount of challenge those first few years where I had to kind of reinvent my entire life and reinvent myself. And that's really what I help people with now.
Thank you so much for sharing about your history and being brave enough to give us some of those details. I'm sorry you had to go through all that. There definitely was a lot of adversity to go through, a lot more than most other people. But at the same time, I still find you to be credible that, I mean, computer engineering is a very hard degree to get. And then to get an MBA is also tough, like on top of that. And despite all the adversity, so that was really amazing. I mean, did you always have those adversity skills? That's something you had to learn through, like you said, through your personal development classes and training that you did?
So thank you. First of all, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I have since reflected on this a lot. And I look really young. So I'm 36 now. I'm very existential, so I'm always contemplating, and I have 11,193 coaching sessions, trainings, and podcasts. And I don't say that to brag. I say that so people know that I'm not just talking, because most people, who's another kid on the internet talking? I have come to understand now through coaching people from all over the world, all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different countries, that I'm an absolute weirdo. And it's not normal. And for anyone who finds themselves on the far end of any statistical bell curve, you're not very relatable. And I have now found out through therapy and other things that most people with a high A score, it's called adverse childhood experiences, actually face early mortality, which I almost did, obviously. But no, usually, not always, but usually, the adversities of abandonment and death and mortality and the family stuff, usually people are shut down by all of that. And I had this unbelievable self-belief that I don't know where I fully got it. I can't tell if it's nature or nurture or if it's delusion or whatever. I don't think it was delusion. I do feel, and this is the part that I'm probably skirting around that I'll just be honest about, is I've always felt gifted. Like when I got straight A's in high school, yeah, I worked harder than the average bear, but it wasn't that hard for me. And I definitely come off it. I'm definitely one of those people where things come pretty easy to me. Not everything. I'm a tall, lanky ectomorph, so bodybuilding did not come easy. But for the most part, when it comes to goal achievement, I've always felt like that's quite the strength. What never was a strength, though, is relationships and the social world. So I think the world is broken into two sections. I think you have the social world, which is your relationships, and then you have the real world. And so who are you and what are you when no one's watching? I always use the social world is the wedding photos and the real world is the marriage. And so for me, I've always been better behind the scenes in terms of structure and discipline and goals and strategic thinking and study and work hard and all that kind of stuff. In the social world, that's where I struggled. I feel like most of my pain and suffering came from being around the wrong people and surrounding myself with people who maybe are bullies and things like that. So as I've grown older and older, I realized how alarming it was that I didn't move on from relationships quicker. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I mean, how did you get into podcasting?
I was with a coach named Alex. I'll keep his last name anonymous. But he was one of my first coaches, and I had dozens of coaches and mentors at this point, but this was the best coach I've ever had. And he was actually very hardcore. And at the time, I kind of thought he was a dick, but now that I'm a coach, I realize he was actually like really fighting for me. But he sat me down and he said, okay, what are all your dreams? And I'm a big dreamer. So I had dozens, seriously, dozens. And, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, all this stuff. And he said, okay, all right, awesome. What if I told you could only choose one? And I said, no, don't you dare. I said, I've been told what I can't do my entire life. I'm not letting you go into that bucket. If you're going to be my coach, no. He said, just hypothetically, Alan, hypothetically. Because I'm so used to, really? You think you can make 6 figures out of college? Yes, I do. And I did. It's been that my whole life. And so anyways, this coach said, just hypothetically. And so he said, if you were to choose one of these and go all in on it, which one would it be? And podcasting was one of them. And I said, I think it's podcasting, which was surprising because I was a fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach. I was a speaker, all this stuff back then. And I said, I think it's podcasting. He said, okay, why? I said, I'm having a big impact. Our listeners are reaching out. And most importantly, and this is only in hindsight, I didn't need permission to practice my craft. So right now I'm practicing my craft of oratory, effective communication, speaking, educating. And I remember I wanted to practice my craft more, and I was practicing speeches in my freaking driveway in front of nobody because no one would let me come into their school. And not no one. I've given hundreds of speeches at this point, but it was not easy to get speeches, even for free.
Well, what were you giving speeches about?
Personal development. I now realize no one cares. And I think for some reason schools seem to have an aversion to growth mindset, personal development, this kind of stuff. I think they tend to be more professional development. I now learn that now, but 10 years ago, I didn't know that. And I also was this weird esoteric sort of engineer who, I don't know, I get it. I get why people didn't have me.
You really jumped around a lot. I mean, you went from computer engineering, which is, very left brain, sort of like analytical, to MBA, which is also analytical, but it's more, business versus engineering, which is a different field. Then you're saying you went into fitness.
Yeah.
And that's a huge job. And then you went into podcasting.
Yep. Yeah,
That's been incredible. I've never heard somebody, and you're only 36.
Thank you.
So you've already done, I mean, a lot of people just stick to one thing. They don't jump around that much.
Daniel, I really appreciate this and thank you. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very eclectic, and there's something called multiple intelligences. There's a book, I forget the name of the author. I should know that off the top of my head, but it talks about the 9 different modalities of genius. And most people have 3 or 4 of them, and very few people have 9 of them. Leonardo da Vinci is someone who had all of them. And I'm not super musically inclined, but I do feel gifted in the sense that I feel like I'm very multifaceted. But anyways, enough about me. What I would share about the podcasting thing is I found out, he said, this was very profound. He said, if you go all in on that one, you can have all the others. That was very profound. I went all in on the Hyperconscious podcast back then with Kevin Palmieri, my business coach and my business partner and co-host. And that was before we rebranded to Next Level University. And now, and he was right. My coach, Alex, was right. If I went all in on that one, that would be the credibility to allow me to go do all the other things. And because I want to be an author and it's been very true, because when you build a business and a brand around something of value that other people value, that value is now attached to you. And now I have the opportunity to be here. I have the opportunity to speak here with you. And I wouldn't if it wasn't for the 2,000 episodes and the community that we've built and all this kind of stuff. So when you go all in on one thing, it's a duality. You have to hold two seemingly opposing ideas in your consciousness simultaneously. You have to go all in on one thing and stick with that. And then also understand that you have to do other things around it. So the podcast Next Level University, which used to be the Hyperconscious podcast, is the sort of vortex at the center of the business, and then everything else around it sort of revolves around it. And that's the brand and the business. And so we have the Next Level Dreamliner, and I have Next Level Coaching. I have a coach that I coach. I am a business coach, Next Level Business Coaching. We have Next Level Podcast Coaching. We have Next Level Podcast Productions. It's actually called Next Level Podcast Solutions. We have Next Level Social Media. So we do social media. We have one client that's extremely high ticket that I joke, I say we might as well be mowing their lawn. It's a joke because obviously we're not, but the scope of work is crazy. So we have all these things that we do, but the primary thing we do is help people achieve their goals and dreams through building personal brands, businesses, and podcasts. And that's really where we've kind of planted our flag, but I've been very eclectic around it. And yeah, it was very surprising to go from computer engineer to fitness competitor and that kind of thing. So I always didn't understand why you had to be smart or attractive, or you had to be popular or geeky, or you had to be a nerd or an athlete. I never got that, and I still don't. And I think that's actually a huge strength and a huge weakness, because usually people see, a haired, blue-eyed looking Ken doll guy, and they don't understand the brain underneath it. And then some people who do see the brain are triggered by the body and all that stuff. To me, my social life's always been hard because of that. But for me, I want to be all I can and do all I can with all I have. And that seems to be reaching your full potential is what I am here for. And I want to help your listeners with.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your sharing, about everything that you do. So can you explain to people, like you said, the Next Level University helps people with their personal brand? I mean, is there any particular type of people that you help? Is it like you work with coaches, entrepreneurs, male, female, any particular needs, field demographic? I think you said you work with people all around the world, but is it primarily like people like coaches, or anybody who wants to be a podcast? Or is it, if somebody wants to create like a food podcast, is that something you help them with? Or is it more like business podcasts and stuff like that?
Yeah. So thank you. And the metaphor that I'll use to explain this is I always say Tesla should not sell energy drinks and Red Bull should not sell cars. Apple has iPod, iPad, AirPods, iPhone. There's a through line. There's a theme. So the theme to our company is reaching the next level. People are all about the present. I disagree. I think pretty soon the future is going to be the present. So design it in advance. And I think the next level matters more than the current level, because if you don't have goals and dreams, you don't have the necessity to reach your full potential. And people say it's the journey, but not the destination. But honestly, the destination you choose in advance dictates most of the journey. If you don't have any destination, you're wandering around. People say not all those who wander are lost. A lot of people are lost. So goals and dreams are what we're about. So we call it level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business. We have Next Level University, Podcast Growth University, and Business Growth University. It's kind of a triad. And you start out with personal development and working on yourself and success principles. And then you eventually start a podcast and build a community and a brand. And then eventually you have to generate revenue. And we have something for everybody. But here's my truth. I think every business needs to have their absolutely people and their absolutely not people. By absolutely people, we've figured this out over many years of pain and failure. Our absolutely people are people who have high work ethic, high humility, and have a sincere interest to reach their full potential. And if that's you, reach out. The absolutely not people that just will never jive with me or with our company is people who want big rewards for minimal effort. There's two types of people in the world that I can't stand. One is the spoiled brats, entitled people who want big rewards for minimal effort. I'm not interested. And number two is bullies. People who are just disrespectful and they lie and they bully people. I'm not interested in those two types of people. So it took me a long time to figure out that I was inviting the Trojan horse into the castle, because I didn't realize that a lot of people are fake. But anyone who doesn't want to work hard and put in the effort to reach their potential and help others, we're not going to jive, because that's not what we're about. Yes, we have something for everyone who's early in their journey or late in their journey, but only if you are humble and have work ethic.
So now that you've done like over 2,000 podcast episodes, like, how has that transformed you as like a podcaster? Is there anything like in particular that what have you learned, or how have you transformed from doing so many podcasts? Or is there any particular podcast that stood out that actually created a transformation inside of yourself? Because I know you've interviewed a lot of famous people like Dean Graziosi, David Meltzer, Evan Carmichael, Roy Handler, just to throw out a few names.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you grow up and you have heroes and you look up to people. And I had so many, I studied the greats, quote unquote, and I looked up to them. And then you meet some of them, and not all of them, but you meet some of them and you are wildly disappointed in who they are. And millionaires and $1 billionaire, dozens of mentors and coaches and this whole nine. And I went into the personal development space very naive. I thought it would be different. It's not. There's a lot of people that are just completely terrible and lying. There's a lot of lying, actually. And so over time you learn, and the heroes fall from the pedestal, and some of them are wonderful and some of them are not. To answer your question, I'll do this. There is no one episode that strikes me as transforming me completely, but I will say what you create creates you. And I think that the podcast has transformed me tremendously, because Kevin and I are so different and so similar. I'll explain. So we both grew up without fathers in the same small-minded town. We both had big dreams, and we both were raised by two women. He was raised by his mom and his Mima. I was raised by my mom and my older sister. But I was very white collar. He was very blue collar. I was very left brain. He was very emotional. Kind of Spock and Captain Kirk kind of going on here. And what I've come to learn is we learned a lot through each other. We had similar core values and similar aspirations, but we had very complementary core values. And so he helped me see my blind spots in a way I never would have seen them. And I helped him see his blind spots. So success came fairly easy, and success principles, that was my natural strength. For him, it wasn't. But the courage, vulnerability, humility, the social world, the inner game didn't come necessarily as naturally to me. So we both well-rounded each other, because there's pros to every con and cons to every pro. And we've become men. We used to be boys. We've become men. And every episode of those 2,200, we're not at 2,200 yet. We're almost there. I would say every episode is a little tweak in awareness, a little tweak in get smarter, get stronger, get more capable, get more aware, more self-aware, others, the world, how it all works. And eventually you become this really knowledgeable human being. And coaching too. I have so many hours of coaching people all over the world from all different industries. So I understand real estate. I understand government. I understand how it all works. I understand private versus nonprofit versus charity. Like, you just have so many data points, and then you can inform that. So my coaching informs the podcast topics. And then we contemplate on the podcast live and bring people in on the growth journey. And then that informs who I coach. The podcast brings people to my coaching, and then the coaching informs the podcast. And it's this really beautiful growth thing. And it's pretty awesome, man. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. I mean, how does it work? Like, what do you think, I'm sorry, let me repeat this. Why do you think entrepreneurs or business coaches or, anybody in business are struggling? Like, they can't get to the next level, and why do they need the next level university? What are maybe the 2 or 3 things that you find that while you're coaching your own people that you find that people are struggling with?
Number one is self-awareness. Like, I don't believe that everyone should be an entrepreneur. I think that if failure shuts you down, do not be an entrepreneur. Unless you have a business partner where it ignites you. Or ignites them, rather. Some people are afraid of success. Some people are afraid of failure. There's core fears. There's embarrassment. There's judgment. There's abandonment. There's all these core fears. Every time we failed, it ignited me and motivated me to go back to the drawing board. And Kevin admits this, and he would say this too. I was just on a podcast with him earlier. It's a 3-person interview, and he would have quit. And that's what he says. So the real answer is, when you go into business, expect it to be atrociously difficult. And this is what I'll end with. I think that there's 2 camps that people tend to fall in, and it's an overgeneralization, but bear with me. One camp is what I grew up in, which is life is really atrociously difficult, but despite that, you can make it meaningful and make something of it. And then there's the other camp, which is life is supposed to be good, and every time it's not, you think something's wrong. I was born into this one. And in the long term, that actually has been a huge advantage. Like, when we lose a client, I don't freak out like something's wrong. You're supposed to lose clients. And life is just inherently very difficult. And I think that a lot of people who grew up in abundance and didn't have a lot of adversity struggle a lot with even the smallest earthquake. So if you are someone who is very emotional and very experience driven and really likes your quality of life, do not start a business. I have been in business for 10 years, and this is my 2nd business, actually, 3rd technically. And I haven't taken a full day off in 10 years. And most people say that, oh my God, that's so bad for you. Oh my, you need to rest. No, listen, not everyone wants to live the same life. Michael Phelps didn't take a day off for 5 years straight before 2008 when he won all those Olympic gold medals. I treat myself and my goals and my business like an Olympic athlete. And I don't intend on taking a day off ever. I'm going to get better every day. Sometimes it's an hour a day. Sometimes it's 20 hours a day. And usually it's around 10. The point that I'm making, though, is you got to choose what goals you want to shoot for. If you want level 10 goals and you want to change the world, you're going to need level 10 commitment. You're going to need level 10 intelligence. You're going to need level 10 humility. You're going to need level 10 resources. You're going to need level 10 tenacity when people attack you for what seems like no reason, even though you're trying to help people. But if you aren't that type of person and that warrior isn't in you, do not go into business, because if you don't have a warrior in you, you're going to get eaten alive. And that's what I would end with is, some people are more tenacious. Some people have no quit in them. And some people have a lot of quit in them. And if you have a lot of quit in you, got to be real careful about what you shoot for.
So Alan, if somebody's interested in working with you, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
If you are the absolutely person who has work ethic, and I use the metaphor of Delta Force. So I looked this up once. There's SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. There's apparently, as of the last time I looked this up, there's 1.3 million individuals in the U.S. military. And the most elite group in the U.S. military is SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force, which Delta Force is only 1 out of every 4,333 people in the military. There's only 300 out of 1.3 million. If you do the math, it's 1 out of 433,000. So those are my clients. I am not the coach who's going to be easy on you. I always say this: anyone can teach you how to lose weight. Eat less, exercise more. Done. Almost no one can get you to do it. I'm the coach who will get you to do it. And that means I got to push your buttons. That means I got to, I got to be intense, and I got to be intentional, and you got to show up, and there's got to be consequences. And I'm not a coach for everyone, and I understand that. So if you think you're ready for that, that's awesome. We've got some levels to stuff, and reach out. So you can Google my name. You can ChatGPT me, Alan Lazaros. We have Next Level University. We have nextleveluniverse.com. And my Instagram is actually me. I do my own social media every single day now. I'm 105 days straight. And if you DM me right now, alazarus88, that will be me who does respond. And I try to respond every single day. I do respond every single day, actually. And I don't know if I'll be able to do that forever, but I do. And so please reach out if you are someone who really wants to reach their full potential. I guarantee you we have something for you. And whether it's the podcast, which is success principles and improve a little bit each day, or it's hardcore business coaching, and everything in between, Next Level University has something for you to help you reach your goals and dreams.
Well, Alan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me. I appreciate you.
Welcome to part 2 of our podcast show with Alan Lazaros. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. I know, Alan, we spoke. We're off to a really good start, but we both had some time commitments, so we kind of had to get this part 2 of the show. So thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you for having me. Attitude of gratitude to start. I think that's the best way to start everything. I'm grateful to be here, seriously, and I won't waste anyone's time. I feel very privileged to speak into the lives of other people. I remember when I wanted to, but no one cared. So I always try to remember that whenever I get a chance to do this.
Excellent. To kind of recap, earlier on, you kind of shared a little bit about your history, as well as a little bit about your coaching, like the type of coach you are and the type of clients you want to serve. Thank you so much for sharing all that great information. It was really helpful. I'm sure the audience will now has a better idea of who you are as a person. I was curious to know because, you and your partner, you lead like a global team now, and you coach people all around the world, and you have multiple services, and you developed your Next Level University to over, you said 2,200 episodes, and you'll have a huge global reach now of thousands of listeners or watchers. Why would you choose to focus on podcasting versus other types of mediums, like doing live events or like webinars, or, some people, they just create like an online program, they sell a program, that's it. Like they don't really choose podcast. Why did you choose podcasting and all the other type of mediums out there?
The first reason is different than the reason we stuck with it. The first reason was so I had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives. Did we talk about this on round 1?
No.
Okay, I had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, be a fly on the wall, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know. And the idea there was I became an engineer, but I didn't really interview any engineers beforehand. So I got a computer engineering degree, and I was an engineer for tech companies, and I was working for a company called Tyco Safety Products. It's now called Simplex Grinnell. And I found myself designing circuits behind a desk, not really liking my job. So I said, you know what? Let's interview nurses, and let's interview doctors, and let's interview engineers, and let's interview a lawyer. Let's pull back the curtain on what it's actually going to be like in your day-to-day life, so that you don't make a decision when you're 17 that you end up regretting later. So that was my podcast. And Kevin had a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And we teamed up and had the worst titled podcast of all time, which is the Conversations Change Lives meets Hyperconscious podcast. We did that for 20 weeks. Then we went all in on hyperconscious. And it became a self-awareness, understand yourself, others in the world, health, wealth, and love. And then we rebranded the Next Level University. That's what we are now. But to answer your original question, essentially, I had a coach named Alex who was trying to help me grow my company way back. And this is when I was already partnered with Kev, but we were kind of unofficially partnered. We sort of had separate businesses, but the same podcast in a way. And he said, write down all your dreams. And I had a long list: fitness model, fitness competitor, all these things, speaker, author. And one of them was podcaster. And he said, okay, if you had to choose one, which one would you choose? and you couldn't achieve any of the others. I said, hold up. No, I'm going to do them all. And I now understand the wisdom in this, but when I was in my 20s, I didn't get this. He said, it's just hypothetical. Relax. I know you're going to do them all, but just hypothetically, if you had to go all in on one, what would you choose? And I said, honestly, it would be podcasting. And the reason why, I wanted to speak into other people's lives in a way that helped them succeed and developed themselves and improved them. And I was obsessed with self-help books and personal development books and professional development books and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to speak at high schools and colleges. And I had a bunch of speeches under my belt. My slogan was Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. And what I found, and this is obvious in hindsight, you're not going to get hired a lot with that slogan because the schools don't want to highlight where they're sucking, to be honest with you. And school is great for a lot, but it's also terrible when it comes to certain things. And I would come in and kind of highlight the gaps in what they weren't doing. And so the podcast for me was the answer. I would have thought it was going to be speaking. I used to call myself a inspiration, motivation, educational speaker. And the reason the podcast was the thing is because I got to practice my craft without permission from anyone else. I didn't have to get hired. So I'm on a panel next week at my alma mater, WPI. And that's great. But that's in tandem to what I'm already doing. I get to podcast regardless of whether or not they want me. So there's no gatekeepers to me practicing my craft. And I was meeting listeners and all kinds of stuff. So I told him podcasting, if I had to go all in on one, I'm going to do them all. But if I had to go all in on one, it would be podcasting. And he said, here's the irony. Here's the paradox. If you go all in on that one, you can have all the rest. And he was absolutely right. So our brand and our business is built on the epicenter of the Next Level University podcast. Because when you have a podcast that reaches 180 countries out of 195, that's global, and you have 2,200 episodes, it's something that you get to carry with you of earning your stripes. And most importantly, I've learned so much. I interviewed Olympians. I interviewed millionaires and billionaires. I interviewed some world famous people. Some people I regret because I think they suck. But I've interviewed so many walks of life from so many countries, so many cultures. And then we stopped doing interviews because we had too many that weren't very good people. And they didn't walk their talk behind the scenes, which was hard for us. And we're all about leading by example. So eventually we're like, let's just do our own thing. But all of that learning, growth, understanding, and then most importantly, learning how to communicate effectively, which I'm doing right now. I look back at some of my early speeches and I was good, but good is relative. Relative to who? Good compared to me now? Not even close. So 2,200 episodes of me effectively communicating on this microphone to an audience, it's fully scalable and you get to practice every single day. So if this is even reasonably good already, it's because of all those previous episodes. So that's why we chose podcasting. Is I didn't need anyone else's permission to practice my craft and to speak into the lives of other people. And we were meeting people from all over the world. We were meeting listeners. We even met some listeners in person. You know, it was awesome. It was really cool in those early years. And now it's become very different because we don't have time for all that as much as we used to. And it's not completely different. So we can go into the business model, but the podcast was scalable and no one else needed to give us permission to pour into other people's lives. And that was both a gift and a curse. It was a gift in the sense that we got to do it whenever we wanted and it was our show, so no one could tell us what we could or couldn't say. But the downside was it's all our responsibility. No one's helping us grow it. So we have to organically bootstrap this thing from the very beginning.
You mentioned there were a lot of like lessons learned during your podcasting from doing 2,200 episodes. Can you maybe share with the audience, like, what were some of the lessons that helped you grow to where you are now? Where now you're not just like you and your partner, you have a team, right? And you have the whole like program and like the whole systems in place. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned so far doing all those episodes? And maybe you can share with the audience, what it took from you to go from like the beginning to who you are now. Because you mentioned like how you've improved a lot.
Yeah, there's a couple things I would share if I could go back and talk to our younger selves. This is a framework that we created through the process of learning how to grow a show and a business, a podcast and a business. The first one is TikTok may or may be around or may not in 5 years, but social media won't go anywhere. So it's this duality you have to hold of like these sort of 5 categories. So one of them is social media. One of them is some sort of podcast or YouTube channel or something that's scalable. And then the next one is some form of a group, a private group. You can do it on WhatsApp. You can do a private Facebook group. You can do school is one of them. There's a bunch of, but you have to have some sort of a community that you get together where people identify as, hey, yeah, I want to be a part of this. And then you do some sort of a meetup that's consistent. So I have a book club I do every week. I was actually on book club earlier today, and I've been doing that for 5 years. I have a masterclass every month. It's totally free that I get people together. And then the last one is you have to have something that is high enough value that people will pay money for it. So for me, I have social media at the top of so picture a funnel, for lack of better phrasing. The top is social media where you inspire and motivate people, but you're not really educating. Then the podcast is next, Business Growth University or Next Level University, where you start to really educate people. You start to talk, you get a little deeper. Then after the podcast, we invite you, if you listen to my podcasts, I invite you to the masterclass. I invite you into the Next Level Nation private Facebook group and that kind of thing. Then you bring people to book club, masterclass, free things where you help people in a meaningful way with whatever they're struggling with. So our podcast is about helping people with success and goals. So we do goals, metrics, and habits. We have an app actually that is a habit tracker. It's currently off right now because we're redeveloping the whole thing, but we had 110 users and we were redoing the whole thing, the whole framework. But the point is, everyone in our community is basically goal-oriented, who track metrics and habits toward their goals to get to the next level. That's kind of the thing. And I have a masterclass and a book club. We're not reading Harry Potter. We're reading books. Like right now, we're reading Rationality by Steven Pinker, because I believe that we are wildly irrational human beings and we don't think about our thinking and we don't make good decisions. And this book is about basically how to be more successful by making sure your mental map is accurate. And then the last piece of this is you have to have something that's so valuable that people will pay. And for me, it's business coaching, but we also have podcast production services. We have a group coaching program that's paid. We have 20 groups. We've actually graduated 19. Our 20th group, I might have told you about this, but our 20th group started last Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago. And group 21 starts in January of 2026. And we've done 20 groups every quarter for the last 5 years. So you basically have to give free value, build community around some core value or goal that you have in common with your listeners. And then you provide services and products. Like, for example, this is a Next Level Dreamliner. And I'm not here to sell this, but I am here to give you this idea. The Dreamliner is a journal we use every day where it talks about your top 3 gratitudes, your top 3 most important tasks, your next level lesson, your most important improvement, your most important win for the day. And then there's a prompt. So this is sort of Achieve Your Dreams 90 days at a time. It's a journal that we use at our company. Me and Kevin use it. And then our listeners use it to be more productive, because most people are winging it. And if you wing it, you're in trouble. And that's a whole nother conversation. But the things that I've learned in 2,200 episodes is basically, as an engineer, most people in the podcasting space are not thinking about organizational design and systems and structures. And a lot of podcasters are great podcasters, but they're not really good at running a business. And you have to really be good with people. You have to be good at running a business and org design. And then you have to also be good at building community, because the best podcasters in the world build community. And community is basically, hey, we have a common goal or a common core value that we want to rally around. And for us, it's we all want to be more successful in health, wealth, and love. And we want to set goals, track metrics and habits to make sure we're accountable. And we have we have a fitness group with 64 people. We have Next Level Nation that has, 1,000. And these are not random people. These are listeners. These are people who know us and we know them. Like, I can name most of the people in that group by first name. This is an actual community of people that I consider close friends in some cases. And I have 22 paying one-on-one clients. I talked to you about that off air. And a lot of them were at one point just in book club. At one point, they saw me on social media. They checked out the podcast eventually. They loved the podcast, and then they came to book club, and then they were like, you know what, maybe I do need a coach. And it's just, it feeds. So last piece, the top is 1 to scale. So social media is 1 to scale. So you post and it's potentially scalable. It's hard to scale, but it's potentially scalable. And then the podcast is 1 to scale. So we do an episode, this right here, you can put on the internet, and however many, anywhere from 1 to 1 million people might listen, or 1 to 1 billion even. I doubt that's going to happen, but you understand the concept. Then you have groups. That's 1 to several. So when I do my masterclass, it's me and 20 people doing a goal setting workshop. That's 1 to several. 1 to 1, that's where we make money. Because that's me coaching you on your business, one-on-one behind the scenes. I actually just did some finance stuff with a new client yesterday. And they all feed each other. So what I learn in my 1-to-1, helping real people in the real world, real business owners and podcasters and individuals, I then bring those to the podcast, and now I know what to talk about on the podcast. So it's all connected. It's like the podcast brings people to the trainings bring people to the one-on-one coaching, and the one-on-one coaching informs the podcast. So the podcast brings warm leads to the business, and the business feeds the podcast with money, and it snowballs, and your impact grows and grows. And so that's kind of the best thing that I wish I could have told Kevin and I, because quite frankly, it's obvious in hindsight that we did that, but we didn't do it as quick or as effectively as we could if we had that framework earlier.
So now that you've done 2,200 episodes, which is really remarkable, because, the last several years, podcasting has become really popular. I've personally met a lot of people that have started podcasting, but then they kind of fizzles out after a couple of episodes because they don't realize how much work it is. It is a lot of work. It's not something we just push a button and boom, you're done. There's a lot of thought involved, on strategy involved, like I said, trying to figure out the direction of the podcast, the theme of the podcast, and then finding guests, doing the scheduling, actually doing the actual podcasting, the recording, editing, yada. So my question to you now is, now that you've done so many podcasts, how do you maintain like the level of high quality? You keep the content fresh and avoid burning out, because it seems like you and your partner are on a really big high right now.
Thank you. Thank you. How do you sustain it? There's a lot under there to unpack. What I would say first and foremost is we didn't start doing 1 a day way back. We started with 1 a week. And then we went from 1 a week to 2 a week. And then we went from 2 a week to 3 a week. Then we went from 3 to 5. We jumped to 5. And this is when we had a team. And then we went from 5 to 7. So we do an episode every day. It's 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. That's Next Level University. And at this point, Kevin has a podcast called Podcast Growth University, where he helps podcasters grow podcasts and monetize them. And I talked to you about Business Growth University. So it's a podcast by business owners for business owners. And if you're not a business owner, you're just not going to the show because it's completely irrelevant to you. And so it's kind of level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business. But Kevin and I now, and I also have another one called the Conscious Couples Podcast with my partner, and we literally coach couples. One of our clients just got engaged last week, actually. Another one got married 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's become kind of a whole thing. But to answer your original question, how do I do 7 episodes a week for NLU, 1 episode a week for BGU, and then 1 episode a week for CCP, Conscious Couples Podcast? So I'm doing 7, 8, 9. I'm doing 9 episodes a week, not including other shows. Now, this is not a flex, but I want to be honest with you and your listeners. My best I've ever done for coaching, training, and podcasting is 54 a week. So I track on my calendar everything that I do on this other computer over here. And I actually I have my 10,000 hour tracker is what I call it. But podcasting, coaching, and training are my 3 things. The best I've ever done, I track this every day, is 54 in a single week. That's my current PR. My average right now is 47 in Q4. My average in Q3 was 49. So 49 a week. That's 49 hours front facing. I work 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single Monday through Saturday. And Sundays are back office work. So I work every day. So how do I not burn out? This is not a flex. I need people to understand, like, number one, I'm wired in a way where I don't really want days off and shit like that. I don't recommend the way I live to anyone else. Okay. That said, Kevin, my business partner, is not wired that way. So he is just trying to keep up with me. And he says that all the time. He says, I'm a good number 2. I'm not a good number 1. I cannot set the pace, but I can survive yours. And so he takes every Sunday off, right? He's golfing probably right fucking now. He's golfing right now, right? We're not 50-50 business partners because of that, but he's a business partner. And he and I realized over time that, like, I'm wired in a way where Kobe Bryant is kind of a good example. And again, I don't associate me with Kobe, but Kobe worked every day and he was known for that. And that's who he is. And that's who I am. And so first and foremost, how do I not burn out? I think I'm wired for this for sure. And I think most people would burn out. Number 2, and this is the more important piece, is what I'm doing behind the scenes that allows me to not burn out. So I was on book club earlier. I got fired up and I was like, ooh, I was a little too loud. I'm going to hurt my voice. I don't know if I'm going to be able to coach later, right? Because I've got 4 more coaching sessions after this. And I just got off a coaching call. So I have 9 back-to-backs today, including you. And this is Saturday, right? So behind the scenes, when no one's watching though, I'm always taking really good care of myself. So you'll notice, and again, I don't look great right now, but self-care is critical. So I get great sleep. Last night, I tracked my sleep on this Oura Ring. So last night I'm not even kidding, 9 hours and 47 minutes in bed. 8 hours and 27 minutes of total sleep. I got an 81 sleep score with an 86% sleep efficiency. I've got 2 hours and 35 minutes of REM and 1 hour and 8 minutes of deep sleep. When I don't sleep well, I could never do this. When I get a 50 sleep score, it feels like the sky is falling. I just can't. So the truth is, sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, and supplementation is a framework that I created in my fitness coaching days that I leverage to be a peak performer. My goal in life is not to do less. It's to figure out how to do more. And I know that's not normal, but I also think it's important for people who do actually want to do more. Like, you're going to have to take care of the foundation, which is your health, because I would burn out if I didn't have all those fitness fundamentals. I also exercise for an hour a day every single day now. And Emily and I have been exercising every day for almost 4 years. So 3.7 years now. And people always ask me, like, how do you not burn out? The answer is I optimize everything. I don't waste a second of time. I am very good at sleep and intentional recovery. I eat really well and I exercise every day. And quite frankly, Kev can't keep up. He burns out quick. He burns hot and burns out. And he knows that about himself. So he does a lot more back office stuff than I do.
I mean, you mentioned that's so critical for your success. Do you kind of incorporate some of those things, like the one you just mentioned about, like, the physical training, the nutrition, the sleep, into your business coaching to help people on the business side not burned out? Because it's also like a common thing for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
It's like 9 out of 10 businesses fail. That's like a statistic that a lot of people throw around conversations. So, I mean, is that kind of like part of like how you coach people in business?
Yes.
Saying you have to do the self-care in order to be successful in business?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was a life coach, and then I canned that quickly. I was a mindset coach. Then I was a peak performance coach. Then I was a business consultant. And then I was a business coach. And I was a fitness coach for a while too. So we have something called The Works. So there's 2 people in this program right now. One of them his first name is Justin, and one of them's name is Davina. They get coached by me in business. Amy Lenius on my team, she does next level coaching, and I coached her on how to coach for years, and I've coached her for years. And so she does next level coaching, and that's more holistic health, wealth, and love stuff. And then Kevin does podcast coaching. So Justin and Davina are in our program called The Works, where they're both podcasters. We produce their shows. So all they have to do is upload the audio file and video file, and my team does everything. We have a 19-person team. We produce 70 shows now, including 3 of my own. And basically, yes, my job is to make you successful. How do I do that? Basically, we identify, it's called targeting the constraint. So if you and I were on a coaching session behind the scenes, I would immediately be gathering data of where you're sucking with all the love. I would try to identify the constraint. Every human being has a constraint in their life. So if you have X goal and you're not achieving it, it's not because you don't already believe enough in what you already believe. It's because you have a massive blind spot that you refuse to look at. And so my job is to find your mental map and where the gaps are. And one of the biggest gaps is fitness. Nobody knows anything about fitness. It's mind-blowing. But again, I also spent years as a fitness model, 43 photo shoots and competitions, all kinds of stuff. So to me, my job is to fill in your gaps of understanding yourself, others, and the world to ensure that you can. I use the self-driving Tesla as a metaphor. I might have done this in the last episode, but this is the best metaphor in the game. I have a FSD mode, full self-driving mode in my Model Y Tesla. I just literally double click and it takes me where I want to go. It's self-driving. You're supposed to supervise it, but you don't have to. It's really good. Legally, you have to, but you understand what I'm saying. And there's this big screen that shows what the Tesla can see. So there's 9 cameras. There's one in the car. There's one in the front. There's actually 3 in the front. And then there's one on each door, passenger side door. And then there's 2 rear ones. And then there's one in the very, very rear. So I need to see what it sees in order to ensure that the cameras aren't basically it won't let you use full self-driving if one of the cameras is covered because it knows it can't see, so it can't do its job. I think that's a good metaphor for human beings. If you don't know how to take care of yourself, you're never going to win long-term in business. I mean, yeah, you'll win for a while, but you're going to burn out. And there are some exceptions. Steve Jobs, that bothers me a lot because I feel like he didn't take good care of his health. And we could still have Steve around if he had, prioritized health. And again, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but the point is I try to play the long game and I stopped coaching people who don't because I'm just a pain in their ass. And for me, the average life expectancy is 80 years old globally. It's 82 for women. I think it's 79 for men, but statistically it's around 80. And that's now. I mean, it's going to be way higher by the time we're that age. So to me, why play a short-term game in a long-term life? What if people say, what if I died tomorrow? What if you don't? Because statistically speaking, you're not going to. So you better prepare. Your future is not bright by default. It's bright by design. But I digress. Back to your question. My coaching clients get the works because the bottlenecks are never just growing your business. The bottlenecks are your mindset and your belief systems and what you say, think, do, feel, and believe and what your habits are. Some people have atrocious habits and then they wonder why they're not winning. And exercising every day doesn't directly correlate to business success, but exercising every day does correlate to being in a good state, which does correlate to output, which does correlate to business success. So I think a lot of it comes down to the inability to connect the dots. And that's my job in coaching, is to give the deeper understanding necessary to actually prioritize, your health and how that connects to your wealth.
I mean, you mentioned just now that, a lot of your clients, and it's true with globally, not just their clients. I mean, a lot of people have limiting beliefs, but the people that you personally work with, what are some like 1 or 2 limiting beliefs that you found that's really common that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs have? You think that may be blocking them from being successful?
The number one is they're just inaccurate about what is possible. You're either inaccurate. I'll give you an example. So it's a sort of a spectrum. We call it drive to 5. So the 10s think they're going to be billionaires with very little effort, which is hilarious. And they're delusional about what's possible. These are the people that are just, they have inflated self-belief. They think that more is possible than really is. They think, oh yeah, I can be the most successful podcaster on planet Earth, but I don't really have to work that hard. It's crazy. It's crazy. That's just all ego. That's the biggest limiting belief that I see with achievers. The other limiting belief is you don't think, this is Kevin's end. Kevin didn't think he could even be a successful podcaster, which isn't true. Kevin's a great podcaster. Kevin's very successful. Kevin is top 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. And he says, that's because of you, Alan. No, you still could have been successful. You just wouldn't have been as successful. And so the number one limiting belief that I see is that you are inaccurate about what is possible. You either think you're going to beat LeBron James at basketball, which ain't going to happen, or you think you can't even step on the court. which also isn't true. And so my job is to keep everyone optimal and accurate. And that's the best. It's very hard. That's why I do monthly, weekly, bi-weekly. And I have one that's 5 a week and one that's 3 a week and all that. But that's why I don't coach anyone one-offs anymore. So if you want to do a one-off call paid, I would do one. But if you wanted to do that like once every 4 months, I wouldn't do it anymore because it's not frequent enough to actually keep you centered, because the problem in life is distortion. When I was 160 pounds, skinny, fat, drank too much and too often, I was tall and lanky and no girls would look at me. Now I've been working out a lot, so it's very different now. If you think girls don't care about muscles, you're just wrong. You're just inaccurate. And I've been on both ends of it, so I know the difference. That's just an example of, you ever meet someone who's really not good looking, but they think they're super good looking? And then someone who's really good looking, but doesn't think they're good looking, so they don't even try. You kind of get whatever you believe, and it hurts you or helps you depending on whether you're on the delusional side or the under. So most people undervalue themselves and sell themselves short. And those are the people I love to help, because it's much easier to convince someone that they're better than they are than it is to convince someone that they suck compared to what they think. And so I prefer the high work ethic, humble people who don't believe in themselves, that I can help believe in themselves more, compared to the delusional, I have to convince you you're not going to be a billionaire because you're lazy type of thing, because that ain't me. I think it's arrogant to think you're going to be successful with minimal effort. I do. I just think that's delusional and arrogant, and Candyland isn't real. And a lot of people are like that, particularly in the 21st century. That's been really hard to see.
Well, the internet and, social media, people have that expectation where you just push a button and all your problems are solved, and you're a millionaire. And it does happen to, one
One in a million, right?
Yeah. Certain wins the lottery, right? But most of us who play don't.
Yeah.
I've met people that they start a business with almost no effort, but it's extremely rare. It was more like, like a fluke thing. They just happened to be in the right place at the right time, where something fell like on their lap, and the stars were aligned, whatever you want to call it. And they make a lot of money, like virtually overnight. People actually did make money because they met the right person,
Yeah.
That's
I had a client who,
it's something typical that you can duplicate.
But those are the stories you hear about. Those are the stories you hear about. That's the problem. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I love this conversation. I had a client, I kid you not, made $450,000 in 1 week. I'm not joking. And I stopped saying it because people were coming to my coaching with that expectation. I said, this is the NFT crypto boom 3 years ago. And he actually lost it all, by the way, because he didn't diversify. He had a cryptocurrency that grew like crazy. He had a crypto marketplace based on this. And he made $450,000 in a single week, but he didn't reallocate his investments. Listen, that happens, but it's very rare. And you also aren't seeing the 5-6 years before that he was kind of struggling to try to get this marketplace up. So it was right place, right time. He kind of was overnight success, and he actually was kind of lazy, to be honest with you. So it happens, and those are the stories you hear about. And even back then, I was so excited for him. I coached his whole team. I was like talking about it. I don't talk about it anymore because I don't want, that ain't happening. That ain't happening. That's a fluke. And by the way, a fence that goes up fast falls down fast. I'm pretty sure he's barely in business, if he still is. I actually am connected with one of his team members who is no longer there, and he's excited to work together again. And again, I don't take anything from him personally, but at the end of the day, those freak successes are not what you base your life on.
So you often talk about, the next, you use the word like next level a lot. You talk about the next level you. It's all areas of your life you mentioned, like life, love, health, wealth. I mean, how do you think the definition of next level will evolve for you personally in the next, couple of years? Not being that you evolve so much.
Yeah. I think in some ways it will be the same as it's always been, which is no matter how hard your past has been, you have a bigger, better, brighter future if you choose it, right? Anyone can be a little better tomorrow than they are today. Not everyone's going to beat LeBron James at basketball. Not everyone's going to swim faster than Michael Phelps. But all of us can get better, right? So that principle of the future is brighter than the past is hope. Nihilism is the opposite, which is I don't believe in the future, so then I don't invest in the future, so then the future's dark. And that's a doom loop. So my job at Next Level University, Next Level U, not Next Level me, not Next Level Kevin, but Next Level U, is to keep everyone in hope, keep everyone in the success loop. The success loop is I believe in my brighter future, therefore I invest in it, therefore it gets brighter. Not always, but statistically, right? But the problem is our expectations are off. So we think we're going to be successful overnight when we start a podcast, and we realize a year in that we still suck and that we're not successful, but that's just the wrong expectation. So a year in, so the best way to describe this for everybody, we've been in business for 8 years, Kevin and I, and we bootstrapped this thing, no outside investment. It was fully bootstrapped with credit cards in the beginning. Like this is all ours, which is rare. Usually there's outside investment and partnerships, all kinds of stuff. So it's just bootstrapped, homegrown, organic. The first 2 years in business, we made a total of $13,000. Gross, not take home, gross revenue. We both were in Massachusetts at the time. That is not a sustainable living. And this is why the statistic, 80% of results come in the last 20% of the journey. That's a really great quote if you understand the math, assuming you actually improve and you're on an exponential growth curve. If you take the end of 2025 and you take the last 2 years, we're going to exceed 900,000. So we made 70 times in these 2 years, the first 2 years? That's what growth is. That's what's possible. Now, it's not probable, and it's certainly not going to happen without massive effort. But to your original point, Next Level University is and always will be that. It is what is possible is something you have to believe in advance, and you have to invest your time, effort, and money into it in advance. And if you do, and you put in the work, and you have humility, and you have coaches and mentors, it can be done. If you play the long game, and if you don't quit. And that's what Next Level University stands for. That's what it always has stood for. And then the last piece is Next Level U, which is Next Level YOU, which is your uniqueness. Because the best metaphor I have for this is, and a lot of people don't like it, but whatever. If you look up canine, it's a dog. So dog species is canine. There's 500 recognized breeds of dog globally. I researched this on ChatGPT. There's a bunch of different ones, but 500 is the one that came up as the top. Homo sapien, so canine is to dog as Homo sapien is to us, human beings. There's 500 breeds of human too. So we're not all Great Danes. Some of us are Dalmatians, and some of us are Chihuahuas, and some of us are Pomeranians, and some of us are German Shepherds. That's okay. It's Next Level You. But everybody can be a better dog in this metaphor. And that's what we're focused on. I don't care if you want to be a billionaire. I don't even think you should try to do that. I think most people shouldn't. That's not going to happen. There's only 1,200 self-made billionaires on planet Earth. And most of them are not self-made. They had some sort of outside investment and or parents or generational wealth or trust funds and that kind of thing. I think there's only 3,800 billionaires in the entire world right now out of 8 billion people. There's 8 billion people on planet Earth. There's 5.65 billion people online. There's 195 countries. And there's 1,500 billionaires who actually started from nothing. And even them, they didn't start from nothing because they had outside investors and they were born in the right country at the right time with the right technology. You can't design your future on an anomaly. But that's what we do, because who do we talk about? We talk about Kobe Bryant and Jeff Bezos. I get it, right? Of course you're going to talk about Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan is a freak of nature. You can't. And honestly, in some ways, I feel like I am too. So you can't really listen to me either. That's why Kevin helped me understand that he was going to fail without me. Because the truth is he would have. He was not wired like this. And if Kevin can do it, you can do it. I used to say, if I can do it, you can do it. I don't say that shit anymore because that's not true. Okay? My girlfriend, she's built different. She wins at everything. She wins at everything. we work out together. She's like as strong as me, and she's 5'3" female. She's unbelievable. She wins at everything. She's one of those people, right? And that's okay, but you can't base your life off of her. You can learn from her. You should definitely work with her because she will motivate the hell out of you, and she will put more into time and effort into your success than her own, which is a problem. But at the end of the day, you can't base your life on anything other than your uniqueness. And that's why I always say I'm not going to beat LeBron James at basketball, but I can be the best version of myself.
I like that. That's a really good. I think, like, I really love that you made that point, because I think somebody who may have been listening, along the conversation, may start to get and hey, you're saying you're one for success. I'm not one for success. And they start taking it up. You're saying, like, that's okay. Like, to your point, everybody's different. Not everybody's Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Mickey Mouse. And yeah, it's like we're all unique beings, but there's always the potential of being a better version of our own selves, whatever that means to us. And we're all have our own unique version of whatever that means.
Yeah.
And we have to embrace whatever that is. And the private interpretations of success, what that means, it's, having more happiness in our lives, or a better job, being an entrepreneur, because like you mentioned, like entrepreneurship's not for everybody, but we should just embrace who we really are and be open to, like, this. We can still become a better version of ourselves without thinking we're not good enough compared to somebody else.
Yes, that is it right there. That is it. It's you versus you. And you have to understand the bell curve. You have to understand your strengths and weaknesses compared to others. So I don't want to say comparison is bad, because in a competitive marketplace, if you're not a good singer, you shouldn't build a career on it. But at the end of the day, if you're not a good singer, you should accept that about yourself, and then hopefully figure out what you are good at, statistically speaking, and then go all in on that. And I always say this too, don't build your career on a weakness. Don't. Kevin is a really good speaker. He's really good. If you like, this dude can communicate really well. Half the people say he's better at communicating than me. It's like, how is that even possible? I work way harder than this guy. The truth is, he doesn't think in a math modality. He can't be an engineer, but he can speak to non-engineers better than I can. He can't speak to engineers as well as I can. That's the difference, right? You have to go. I have one woman, her name's Gabby. If she doesn't start a podcast, I'm going to be pissed. She's so good. She gave a 4-minute speech, got a standing ovation. She did a testimonial for us once. I said, how many tries did that take you? She said 1. I said, you need to be a speaker. You're so good. I have other people, it took them 50 tries for a 2-minute testimonial. They might not succeed. It is what it is, right? But they're good at something that Gabby's not. So at the end of the day, I think the hardest thing is to accept who you are. For me, that was the hardest thing. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be likable and warm and loving. And I wanted to be a Dalmatian instead of a Great Dane. I don't do that anymore. It was a losing game. And in my 30s, I realized I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be something I'm not. I used to never even share that I work every day. I used to be too scared to share that because people go, oh, that's so bad for you. One time someone said that. I said, no, that's bad for you. I choose my own life and my own path. And working every day is what I want to do. That's who I am. That's not who you are, very clearly, and that's okay. But I'm not telling you how to live, so don't tell me how to live. So the principles apply to all of us, but the way you apply the principles are unique to you. The medicine that will kill one patient will cure another. The medicine that will cure one patient will kill another. And so the dosage is what matters. All of us need consistency, but not all of us need 9 episodes a week. All of us need social media, but not all of us need 16 platforms. All of us need to learn how to effectively communicate, but not all of us need to be world-class like Tony Robbins. So at the end of the day, you got to figure out what career you want. It's a Venn diagram. Here's who you are, strengths and weaknesses. Here's what the marketplace wants and needs. And then here is what you love to do because it's meaningful work for you, even when it's hard. It's what's the center of that star. And that's what I help people do. I help people get real with themselves and then design a system of success that can actually work, because a lot of us are kidding ourselves. Kev has a great quote. He says this. He says, everyone is afraid that all of you, it's 3 things. And then we got to jump because apparently my alarm just went off. All of us are 3 things. Every listener, anyone watching out there, think about which one resonates most with you. It might be a couple that resonate, but think about which one resonates most and be very honest with yourself. The first one is all of me is not enough. If that resonates with you, all of me is not enough. Okay, that's Kevin's. So there's 3 ways we lie to ourselves. We inflate, we deflate, or we omit. So someone like Kevin spent his childhood inflating, pretending to be more than he was, and then behind the scenes fearful that people would find out he wasn't enough. Okay? That's number 1. That's the most common. Number 2, all of me is too much. That is mine. If I dial up, I am so intense and so driven, it's not even funny. It's too much for people. That's the achievers of the world. That's the Michael Jordans of the world. He owns it better than I do. But the truth is, we deflate because we don't want to make others uncomfortable, basically. And I stopped doing that because I've healed a lot of my trauma. So all of you is not enough is the first wound. The second wound is all of you is too much. Whoa. The third one is all of me does not belong. Whichever one resonates most with you, you need a different dosage with a different medicine. So for me, it's social courage. I shirk in social situations and pretend to be less because I want to fit in, because I don't want to be attacked and villainized. Kev puffs up to pretend he's smarter than he is because he doesn't want anyone to know he's not that smart. And he actually is smart. This is all in our head, right? And then some people just don't feel like they fit in anywhere. And those are what I call the unwanteds. And if you're an unwanted, a defective, or an unlovable, I coach you very different depending on what your core wound is. Everyone has a primary core wound. Everyone's playing not to lose and not playing to win. I get you to heal the core wound and then play to win. My fear is abandonment and being villainized and attacked and people hating me. So I have to override that. All my awards, having them in the background, people will villainize me. Oh, you pretentious butthead. You think you're so great. I got that all the time. And that's why I shrunk, because when I shrink, no one attacks me. And so I had to stop doing that because obviously if you want to be a successful business coach, you have to showcase that you're actually an intelligent human being who has a successful business. But I wouldn't show it. I would hide. And then Kev would show it, but it wouldn't be real. So he'd shirk away from the coaching. So we had to learn over time that all of us have different core wounds and different fears. And the antidote for that core wound is completely different depending on which one it is.
Well, Alan, you shared a lot of great information on the podcast today. I know we both are kind of stressed on time for now. If somebody wanted to listen more to you or they're interested in getting in touch with you, what are the best ways they can connect with you?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this space for other people to hear some of the stuff that it took me a decade to learn, and creating the safe space for me to express. Anyone who is out there who really is sick and tired of wandering around and pretending to be found, if you have high coachability and high work ethic, I am your coach. You bring the coachability, the humility, and the work ethic, I'll bring the strategy, and we will crank. If there's only 2 types of people I don't work with. The first one is bullies, which is people who put other people down to feel better about themselves. And the second type is spoiled brats, which is people who want huge rewards for minimal effort. If you want big rewards for minimal effort, you're not going to like me. Kevin and I came from nothing. We're tryhards. We work hard. We're never going to stop working hard. The goal is not to do less. The goal is to become more. And I'm just going to be a pain in your butt. So I learned that over time. If you don't have high coachability and high work ethic, you're not going to like me, and you're certainly not going to want to work with me, and I'm definitely not going to work with you. So if you have high humility and high work ethic and high coachability, please reach out. Alan at nextleveluniverse.com. Nextleveluniverse.com is the website. You can Google my name. You can ChatGPT me. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn are my socials that I use. That will be me. It won't be my EA. It won't be an AI bot. It's going to be me. Please DM me on Instagram is the best one. And let's connect.
We'll definitely have all your links in the show notes of the podcast. I wanted to thank you so much. You had a lot of great information. Thank you so much for coming on the show, being so humble to share, authentic about your story, as well as give a lot of valuable information. I think a lot of things like you talked about, I think people like coaches wouldn't give that information for free unless they were paid thousands of dollars. So it shows how much you really want to help people. And that's what your heart's about, is helping people as much as you can. So thank you, Alan, for being you and coming to the show, being visible for our audience.
Thank you for recognizing that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we give a lot for free, and I just want to see other people be more successful and more fulfilled, because that's how you make the world a better place. And I hope that this was helpful. So thank you for recognizing that, and thank you for having me. And I will come back another time. If you're ever interested, just let me know.
Definitely, Alan. Thank you for coming on the show.